I think most of us are here, so why don't we get started? So good morning, everyone. My name is Ville Osterlund. I'm from Leanlab. I'm really delighted to have Harri Nieminen from Stockmann with me today. Welcome, Harri.
Thank you.
And it's a real treat to have you on the call because today you'll be able to share the big transformation story that you've been making within Stockmann, from product led to more customer led. And with that, you are also making a big change in terms of collecting passive feedback, going towards more customer collaboration and quick iteration loops with customers. So there's a lot of people on the call excited to hear your story. We have kind of three main blocks today in our session. So we start with the problem about the old ways of research and why they aren't working. And then we move into the meaty part of the section, which is the solution. So Harri steps in there to share his knowledge on how they build their customer lab, how it's working, use cases, and so on. So we'll do a deep dive there. And then we kind of wrap up on the results and the impact on business. And the session will be interactive, so we have few polls on the way. There is a Q&A at the end where we will discuss some topics and some open questions. So feel free to use the Q&A box that you find on the webinar software in the right corner. There is a Q&A box, so please feel to drop your questions there, and we hope to address some of those at the end of the session. If we're running out of time, we'll get back to you with Harri's and my responses and answers later date. But let's get things going. So just a quick intro about myself. So I've been helping a lot of Nordic organizations in the last decade or so, helping them to become more customer oriented in terms of the ways they develop services and products and with the ways they launch new things onto the market. But the real star of the show is obviously Harri, who's head of CX and loyalty at Stockmann. So Harri, please set us the scene, maybe tell a little bit about yourself and the brand transformation that you're making and how it's kind of connected to our talk today about customer labs.
Yes, thank you, Ville, for the invitation, and thank you everyone who has joined already today. Happy to be here as well. And yes, my name is Harri Nieminen. I'm based in Helsinki, Finland. I will soon tell you a few words about Stockmann if the brand is not familiar to you. But yes, I've been leading the CX and Insight and now also loyalty related topics at Stockmann for nearly 4 years now. And it has been an interesting ride. We are certainly developing our ways of working around customer insight and customer experience. And today we will touch on a few of the topics that how we have done certain things and develop the culture and the tools and methods that we are using. Maybe I will then jump to the story of Stockmann in very short at this point. If you want to hear more, let's catch up later. But first of all, we have quite a long history. Stockmann is more than 160 years old. We are part of Lindex Group, which is maybe familiar to more people since it operates in more countries than Stockmann does, but we operate in Finland, Estonia, and Latvia. We have 7 department stores in these 3 countries, and of course online store as well, since this kind of omni experience is definitely one of the key areas that we are looking into. And also kind of strengthening the emotional connection both online and in store with all our customers. And we have quite a large loyal customer pool, over 800,000 active loyal members in all 3 countries combined. And rather big part of our turnover comes from our loyal customers, and therefore we have kind of known it always that listening to your customers is super important. World has been changing, retail has been changing, and of course we know that we have to change along as well. We've been studying the topic internally as well because we kind of wanted to understand that what does it mean when we talk about customer centricity at Stockmann? My background is in CX development and service design and so forth. So to me, it means certain things, but then we kind of wanted to make sure that we are aligned internally when we talk about what it means to listen to our customers, for example. And these are some quotes from the study that we made some time ago. And on the other hand, we kind of say and acknowledge that in retail, the customer is kind of the heart and the soul of our business and the greatest asset that we have, because if no one buys the things that we are selling or uses the services that we are providing, the business would end rather quickly. But at the same time, even with the long history of fulfilling the wishes of our customers, we do also kind of acknowledge that we are, at least in certain cases, we are rather category focused. And that's maybe the downside of the legacy that an old company has, that certain ways of working have established over the years. And sometimes it might be harder to learn away from something compared to that you would just learn a new skill that you haven't had before. So therefore, this kind of way of thinking and cultural change has been, or is still, of course, as big as learning some new tools, how to collaborate with your customers or other stakeholders. And at Stockmann, as I said, that we are a premium retailer. So we have the department stores that are focusing on good quality, long-lasting selection. We are continuously developing the assortment that we have in home, beauty, and fashion categories, and also grocery categories in the Baltics. And we kind of know that we are not competing with the price. We are not aiming for the cheapest option, but we want to have the best price quality ratio. And therefore, we also know that if just like measuring the customer experience is not purely asking that, were you satisfied or would you recommend us and so forth. So our customer promise is to offer a feeling that lasts. And therefore, we really want to kind of deeply understand how our customers are feeling about us and thinking about us. And I will later today mention a few things about our Voice of Customer program and also show a few case examples. But this is something that we really build on, that to truly understand the emotional connection that our customers have. And it's not a single survey, even though we do a lot of feedback surveys, but it's not like a single survey, but it is more of a collaboration and continuous discussion and dialogue that we want to have with our customers.
That's really interesting, Harri. I think we definitely want to dig deeper into that story. It's when we started collaborating with you a few years ago, you already had a quite extensive Voice of Customer program, touch points here and there and making measurements. So why did you guys want to build a customer lab? What was missing in the customer voice program toolkit, so to say? So handing over back to you, Harri.
Yes, I will next show you a quick glimpse on the framework, that how we have defined our Voice of Customer program. But to answer your question, I would say that the listening to your customers can easily be quite one way, that you ask questions and you get the response from the customer. But for us, we kind of understood partly that it has to be more two ways, that we also respond to our customers. And of course, there are maybe ways to kind of respond to every single feedback that you're getting. But we kind of felt the need to have this kind of sandbox where we can play with our customers with and share a little bit more openly what we are thinking and what we are developing at the moment, and exactly have like a dialogue with them. And regarding the different tools and methods that we are using, as mentioned, we do collect a lot of data. Our loyalty program is nearly 30 years old. Of course, it has been changing over the years in different stages, but since quite a big part of our turnover comes from our loyal customers, so we know rather well who is buying and what. But that's also kind of looking in the past, even though you can predict certain behavior or frequency based on that data, but it's still like who has bought and what, less about why. And then our different surveys and projects that where we do different surveys, they are rather touch point specific, that we ask, for example, after you have visited Stockmann, how do you feel about the visit or the purchase that you made, both in e-com and in the stores, or how you feel about the delivery when you get the product that you have ordered from us, or contact our customer service. So we, as I said, I think I mentioned already that we do get like close to 150,000 responses per year in these automated surveys, but it's very one way and gives us a very nice understanding how we are doing and how we can kind of map, as said, KPIs internally. But then we wanted to add this online customer lab, the community, as we call it, where we kind of can have more open discussion. We do, I will show you a few examples, but we have kind of shown our customers quite preliminary plans and asked for their input. And they also kind of have a discussion with each other, comment on each other's topics that they have there. So it has been kind of given us a nice playground to deepen and have more qualitative insight in the discussion. And I still want to highlight that no data is valuable unless you actually act on it somehow. So actionable insights and internal discussion. So that's why we internally always, as I said, that it's also a very cultural topic. So we do emphasize that it's important that we together draw the conclusions and read between the lines, but especially we act on it. So as a company, I think we are very responsible for our customers who use some time to answer a survey or spend time in the online community, that we actually do something with the feedback and the comments that they are giving. So I would say that the online community is filling the gap in the tools that we have for different kind of insight gathering and having a real discussion with our customers in many cases.
Yeah, thanks, Harri. I think this is all touching very closely to, everything I keep hearing week in, week out on my calls with other practitioners, these challenges. And if we put it in a kind of a broader context, a lot of us are kind of stuck in the old way of capturing insights. So, surveys have long history. The online survey history is maybe 30 years long. And initially they were enjoying very, very high response rates, but today the response rates are super low. So people are starting to question the validity of the surveys that they get. Then, if you're trying to get qualitative research, then, the usual track is running one-to-one interviews. But the problem for so many companies is that it's incredibly slow. It takes 8 weeks, 2 months to turn around a study. So the time to insight is just not sustainable if we think about the processes and the way the businesses are developing these days. It's much more agile. It's much more on the go. And then if you start handing out your research to agencies, then it becomes super costly. So not many companies can support it. And then by handing out a lot of your research, you're kind of outsourcing a lot of that knowledge to a research company as well, which is not necessarily a desired thing. If you're outsourcing your core asset, the customer understanding, to external agencies. So I think the net result is that a lot of companies are suffering from this sort of slow customer decision-making process, given the slow research process. Then the cost per insight is incredibly high. And then this is kind of where the research then becomes an obstacle or barrier. So, because it's pricey, because it takes time, because it takes money, we start then making, educated guesses in our service development, product development. And that's really a massive challenge. How do you, Harri, recognize these sort of symptoms that you're seeing here, if you think about Stockmann or other companies that you worked along the way?
Yeah, I've fully kind of agree with these kind of issues that many industries and many companies are having, and I would say that especially in retail, it's quite fast paced in many ways, and we kind of look what happened yesterday and last week and how can we fine tune for the next day or the coming weeks, especially on very tactical level. So I would say that in some cases it has been maybe experienced that when I say that we need to listen to our customers, or we need to collect some insight or organize interviews or whatever, that it's seen kind of as an obstacle or something that slows down the operations or the development especially. But to me, it's more like we just have to be at the right time doing the right things. And especially with the development, you can do quite a lot based on assumptions and so forth. So even though you would get things done, they might not be the right things that you need to get done. And I fully also agree that organizing a huge amount of interviews, for example, it can be very slow and very costly. So of course, we kind of always have to be efficient in the ways of working that we have, and different projects and different situations require different input. But all in all, I would say that as I mentioned in the beginning, that it's a very cultural thing, that when we are teaching our stakeholders that there are faster and not necessarily easier, but lighter ways to execute certain insight phases of the projects or the daily operations, I would say that then we can see the hunger for more, which is of course fueling then everything that we are doing around customer and the insight.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we are seeing across our customers. We just recently started with a new customer. Let's say we are like 5 or 6 months into it, and they already had their aha moment in the first month or so, and now the appetite just has grown significantly. So what they initially thought they would make, let's say, few ways of research, now they already done like 16 ways of research within a half a year period, which is 16 times more than they done before, because they were just stuck in that old ways of, hey, we know better what customers want. We don't need any testing. We just need to ship the thing out and then get the learnings. But that's a very costly way of developing. But let's do a quick audience question on this subject. So, the first poll is, what's your biggest challenge with customer research? So let's give 20, 30 seconds for people to click their answers, and we can see the distribution. So we are seeing it's not systematic. That's one challenge. Slow, hard to get buy-in for research. Yeah, systematic is trending. It's too expensive. Yeah, so the distribution is that the core challenge for a lot of people on this call is that the research is not systematic. It's not ongoing, continuous, but it's ad hoc. And usually with ad hoc, it means it's firefighting mode. So when something goes wrong, then you do research and try to figure things out kind of post-mortem. But this sort of brings me to this picture, kind of like the vicious circle of research. So because it's expensive, the time to research is long, then the barrier for conducting research in the first place is very high. And that means that organizations end up doing less research, end up filling the void with guesswork. And over time, that means you're making constantly poor decisions on your experience development decisions. And then over time, that compounds, and small problems then become bigger problems because you're constantly guessworking and kind of building kind of long-term depth to your brand and experience. And this kind of what I say to a lot of people is that guesswork is ultimately the most expensive research method. So although we mean well by saying, hey, let's save time and money and let's just ship and do this quickly, you actually end up compounding debts in a lot of cases. So that's, I think, is an important takeaway from this poll and from this vicious circle. And then this is kind of where the customer lab then comes into picture. So customer lab is a very different way of working. So it means that You build your own private online space. Harri will open it up in Stockmann's case in a moment, but it's your private space. Like, you were saying a little bit, it's kind of like that experimental space where you invite select customers to become your advisors who are then ready to help you sort of 24/7. So all of a sudden, what took like 8 weeks now takes 24 hours. So you have a question, you throw it onto your customer lab, people, give you thoughts, feedback, replies, and you have this continuous learning motion. So what was sort of unsystematic and unscalable now all of a sudden becomes very systematic and scalable. The lab itself has a toolkit of 9 different tools. So if you think about double diamond or whatever kind of innovation or service design development framework you have different tools for different phases of research. So you have qualitative and quantitative, and you're able to show stimuli and get feedback on those, and that's really critical so that you can start scaling and using digital methods on large scale. Thirdly, and this is critical, is that because it's a private relationship-based environment, you're then asking people to be your kind of partners. So we're now moving away from treating customers as respondents and treating them as advisors and partners. And this is really critical because now it's much more of a relationship-based research kind of method or system. And these people are your customers, so they know your product, they know your context, so you are able to get much more nuanced and rich feedback from customers in this way. And if we think about it from the kind of, let's say, business benefit perspective, I think there's 2 main items here I think about. First of all, it removes barriers for research, which is one of the main obstacles. So what was difficult before now becomes super easy, going away from those 2-month cycles into 1-week cycles or daily cycles, if you really want to speed things up. And it really is a transformative way of working. So if you're making that transformation to become more customer-led, more data-led, this is the way forward to start getting a lot of feedback in a jiffy. And then, the unstructured and slow then becomes systematic and fast. And then, research just becomes like an enabler rather than showstopper. And this is really the key about this continuous learning machine, the tagline that you see there on the top. Then secondly, this has a lot of efficiency gains, so the time to insight drops heavily, cost per insight drop because, there's only a nominal cost of doing additional research wave. And, you start saving hundreds and hundreds of hours from your team, transitioning away from pen and paper research and opting in more purpose-built digital tools. So now that you understand, why you might want to look into Customer Lab, let's now explore how it actually works in practice. So Harri, back over to you. How does your lab look today?
Yes, and I saw that there were very good questions coming in as well, so I will tackle at least some of those right away here. But to define it in short is that we have about 1,300 members in the lab at the moment, in the community, as we call it. We do recruit new members every now and then, so we've been using a little bit different methods. So, for example, we have sometimes posted on our social media channels that, hey, would you be interested to join? And the people who want to join, they do fill a certain kind of pre-screen to get certain information about them. And we, of course, maybe sometimes can also limit if we see that someone is not fit or somehow with a real agenda joining. But we haven't had those kind of issues, really. So, and of course, we sometimes add a little ad to our newsletters that are going to our customers. We have used also the magazine that we are sending our loyal customers. So different methods have been used in recruiting the members. I would say that most of them are most likely Stockmann's loyal customers, but we don't say that you have to be. But unless someone's just buying on us, I would say that, of course, they are rather interested in Stockmann, and that's why they want to join. We do want to keep the community active, so that means that we do smaller and bigger tasks depending on the projects or the time of the year or other initiatives that we might have ongoing. So as mentioned here, we have done over like 60 studies within less than 2 years, so that averages on like three different tasks or studies per month. Some of them have been more to activate the members, so they might be like really short polls and easy questions just to kind of check that who is still active and who isn't. We have cleaned away also members, that if we see that someone has really gotten passive and is not taking part in any of the activities that we have, then we just clean them out and recruit a little bit more. The resources that we are using to run the lab, well, you can always think what is a small amount and what is a big amount of resources, but my team consists of me plus 4 people with a little bit different responsibilities. So I have like one team member whose main responsibility is operating the Leanlab here in Finland. I support the person, of course, every now and then, and Leanlab has been supporting us as well. Thank you for that. But I would say that it depends a lot on the situation, that who we want to target the tasks, and if we want to recruit, let's say, younger people or male customers or people from a certain region, then we use a little bit different methods to recruit them. And I would say there was a question that how do you get people to invest time in your customer lab? So at some point they might not want to do it anymore, and then they get passive and then they just wither away. But most of the members, when we keep a nice balance, then I would say that then we kind of have a good amount of content that people want to answer the surveys, but we don't drown them with the surveys either. So far we have been rather satisfied with the members that we have in the community.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few questions around the recruitment, so why don't we stop here and just unbox that a little bit more on how you actually recruited participants. You know, who do you think that they represent? The rewards. We have a few other questions related to, you know, how do you get people to invest time? Maybe that's something that I can address. I have a slide on that one, but like if you unbox that recruitment and incentive process a little bit more.
Yes, of course. And as said, like we use different channels, and we do kind of look that we would have more or less balanced customer base in the lab, meaning age, gender, location, where they are. So we do sometimes target certain areas or certain customer demographics a little bit more. One nice way to keep them active and somehow committed is that we ask them to kind of introduce themselves in the lab, and they see each other. So it kind of a little bit more humane. It's not just a corporation asking and individuals replying to our questions. And there was recently, I want to quickly share a short story. We had a member joining, and she wrote rather lengthy introduction, sharing her memories about Stockmann and how things have gone over the years. And she was like super satisfied in many, many ways. And I just shared that intro to my colleagues in the management and said that, hey, these are like really nice stories that we get every now and then, and shows that people really want to invest time developing the things that we are doing. And my boss, who is in charge of offering and brand and other topics, she actually got really interested, and she wanted to have a coffee with that customer. And I invited the customer over for coffee, and they had a very nice hour having coffee and exchanging ideas about selection and service and so forth. So I think those are also the very nice highlights, that it doesn't always stay within the online community, but we do, of course, do certain things in real world as well.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing how much people, when you are developing a genuine relationship and having a two-way dialogue, it's amazing how much people are willing to give away about themselves and their preferences and their likes, you know, without any reward, just that that they are able to get heard is actually one of the major rewards. And I did a slide on this, what I mean by this, because if you compare the old way of conducting research, please take our survey. If you think about it from the participants' point of view, it's a very passive, almost passive aggressive with all the reminders that are coming across way of kind of collecting feedback. Also, it's very transactional. So a lot of times there is a stick or a little carrot like, hey, if you answer to this 10-minute survey, then you get €5 voucher or movie tickets, or you get entered into a raffle. So you're kind of asking these transactional one-time favors. And I think we're pretty far down that path. We're seeing that it's not, I mean, it's working and we are getting feedback, but the challenge is that the response rate is very, very low, and it's constantly lowering. So when I started my career in research, we were having, let's say, 30 to 50% response rates to, let's say, box standard surveys. But now these days, you're really lucky if you get 5% response rates. And with the customer lab, it's a very different style of collaborating. So, you invite people to become advisors. So it's much more relationship based. It's an open two-way dialogue, as Harri was mentioning. And people really feel connected with the development team. So when you're providing inputs and feedback, you actually see the impact a little bit later. Maybe it's a new design, maybe it's a prototype, maybe it's a beta test or a campaign. So people feel really proud that they've been able to contribute, and they can really kind of connect the dots between giving the feedback and the impact. And that is main reason why we get these super high engagement rates and high response rates. So our customer labs are kind of averaging anywhere between 30 to 50% response rates, which is, as you can see, it's 10 times higher than the classic box standard survey. So this kind of change in tonality changes things drastically, and you start getting that in-depth feedback, like you shared that story with the elderly lady, joining and sharing feedback, willing to come to Stockmann, have a coffee with your colleagues, and share more of her experiences. So this is really the key here. But before we go into Harri's example, Harri has baked 3 really nice examples for us. Let me just briefly walk through the kind of the platform's core features, so to say, that you get a kind of like a top line picture, what's built so far. So first of all, there's the private lab space, for that meaningful collaboration. So it's a space where your customer can access. It's customized to your brand. So if you're Stockmann, if you're somebody else, the participation feels that, hey, I'm invited, I'm collaborating with this brand. And the members, once they are there, they can then see activities, they can participate in discussions, share experiences directly with development teams in lots and lots of different ways. So there can be short video pops, discussions, quant data, and so on. So it's a very versatile from that point of view. And it's this two-way kind of dialogue with real people on both ends that makes this participation very authentic and meaningful, compared to answering random surveys. So this layer is really critical. This is this key, number one success factor why we're seeing such a high participation rates. People feel connected. Then we don't have time to go into the nitty-gritty of the tools, but if you think about developing services from idea to launch or idea to life, your double diamond development framework, we have mapped out 9 different tools to support you along the way. So to give you a flavor, it's if you're in the early stage doing generative research, doing discovery work, then you can launch discussions, diaries, even collect short video feedbacks, just to get really under the skin of your customers and understand their daily lives. Then once you're kind of in the concept phase, in the mid phases, then we have concept galleries and preference tests where you can quickly show different stimuli, digital mock-ups, store concepts, marketing communications, whatever you can put in digital format, you can share and get feedback. And then once you're kind of close to launch and you're ready to ship, you can then invite people into beta group and do run last minute prototype tests and get that quick feedback and confidence before you launch. So think of the toolbox as kind of like a Swiss Army knife for customer experience research. And with these tools, you're really moving far beyond kind of passive NPS monitoring and reactive research. So your research then becomes much more forward-looking, and you start future-proofing your development, but also your business. And just a quick whiz through, then we have real-time reporting dashboards that make the collaboration within teams super easy. So there's some easy to understand results that you can share instantly by links, invite people to follow the discussions. Then there's segment comparisons, so you can dig deeper into different segments of your customers. So you're not just co-creating and developing with one group, but you can actually get the voice heard across all your different customer groups. And depending how you organize your program, you can then always invite selected segment participants to take part in certain activities. So you can divide and conquer with your customer lab. And thirdly, because it's a call and quant platform, we are marrying it together. So here's just an example of a first click or first impression test. You can see the numbers there on the heat map, but then to the right, you can see open-ended feedback. And this is our idea with the dashboard. So we're trying to fuse as much as we can call and quant together, which is a really, really powerful way of delivering quick insights to business. You can see the numbers, but then you can dig deeper into the thoughts and comments and ideas behind those numbers, straight from the same dashboard. And then what's coming up next? Obviously, AI is a big thing cross industry, and AI is a big thing for us. I believe that AI has really massive potential, not just speeding up the analysis and so on, that is becoming sort of table stakes on these sort of platforms, but what we are launching next is an AI research advisor. So if you think about the whole research process, one of the most challenging parts in that process is actually figuring out if that's the problem, what sort of questions should we ask? And particularly if you're a non-expert, you have a white space, it's a Word document or a PowerPoint, and you start figuring out what the questions are. It's actually quite lengthy and challenging for people that are not in this trade deeply. So with the AI research advisor, we're removing that barrier and we're making it easy to ask questions. And then the AI research advisor makes recommendations. So if that's your problem, then this is the way forward. You can ask these type of questions, use these methodologies, and sequence it in this way. So week 1 you do this, and week 2 you do this, and so on. So this AI is really lowering the barrier and really democratizing research and making research available for every team and company. So there's no PhD required anymore to kind of conduct thorough research. And I think that's the really exciting part with AI. Let's dig into the use cases, Harri. So you have made 3 use cases for us. So shall we do a quick walkthrough of the key learnings from there?
Yes, and there were questions, for example, that how do we select the cases and so forth. So of course, yes, we follow what are the strategic priorities in the company, because we luckily also have the situation that many people want to ask our customers a lot of stuff, but we in some cases have to limit it a bit or at least schedule it nicely. But these are a few case examples of a little bit different projects that we have had. Some of them are very digital. So for example, we've been looking into the pain points that we have in the click and collect process or the experience. And we did rather traditional, in a way, this kind of usability testing and A/B testing around this, that how would it be the most understandable and how does the customer know? We had different mock-ups that we were showing in the lab. So because we really wanted to kind of develop the whole journey, and this was one part of it. So in some cases, it's very digital. We are testing features and options that we want to have online or in the app. So that makes it rather quick and fast, and gives us good guidance that which direction to develop the user interface there. Another very, then again, non-digital context in a way is that we of course, cosmetics or beauty as a category is a huge thing for us. So we are constantly developing it and thinking about how to renovate or develop the space. So we asked our customers in Helsinki to visit the store, take a few pictures, and kind of report in this kind of little bit like a diary style, that what did you see, what did you like, what did you think that is confusing or you don't like. And we got like really nice pictures about the things that we are really proud of, and then we also got a really nice feedback about, for example, the lower picture on the screen is from the kind of outlet sale desk table that we had, and of course the products already look horrible there, and I know that the brand doesn't like that they look like that. So it was like a very good feedback for us, because we maybe look at the nice things when we are looking at the store ourselves and get a little bit blind for the things that are not the hottest ones. So this kind of customer centric, or from the customer point of view, collecting the feedback and their insights, and since they shared the pictures, it gave us a really good understanding what do they actually mean with the insights that they have. And thirdly, this very continuous example is that we, of course, always want to develop the offering and the selection that we have. And it's very difficult to get very concrete feedback in many surveys. Customers say that I want cool trends, I want new products, whatever they like, interesting brands, Italian brands, whatever they might say. So we have for each category this kind of ongoing continuous forum here where all members, and especially new members, usually activate and write brands that they would like to have or products that they would like to have. And sometimes we actually tell them that we do have that already. And then we can deep dive that, is it just that we don't have the right items from the brand, or they didn't know that we have it, or that we can say that, hey, we have thought about this, but it's not possible. We can't get it to Finland or Estonia or Latvia, or we might get it later or something like that. So just kind of give them also an understanding that we do listen and we really do act on the feedback that they're giving, but it's more like a dialogue ongoing. And lastly, I want to say that we have shown very high-level concepts in the lab as well. For example, we are renovating or designing new concepts for the store. So we show these kind of mock-ups that are like, or renderings about a very conceptual things. And we say that you might not get exactly this, but we want to hear what you think is working here and what is not. So sometimes very concrete, sometimes very kind of not vague, but high-level concepts that we want to have their input for.
Yeah, so it's kind of not just the tactical research, but also for the kind of more strategic brand development. You're using the platform for both purposes. Just to manage time, let's continue forwards. The last section is the business impact. So let's walk through the kind of the key numbers and the kind of the key impact that you've had with the customer lab so far. So back over to you to walk us through some of the kind of key takeaways.
Yes. Well, in very short, I said, like we do quite a lot of studies, and they are organized by me and my team. We are asking our colleagues, what do you want to figure out? They don't have to know what they want to ask. So we do about 3 studies per month, sometimes more, sometimes maybe a little bit less. We have been really appreciating the activity in the community. And we do know that they are, of course, a little bit more interested in Stockmann than maybe someone else who is not visiting at Stockmann at the moment. But for the ones that are in the community, they are very nicely active. And we don't always ask all questions from everyone, or we don't do all tasks for the whole community. So we might just choose a certain target group from there. And I would say lastly that, of course, the time saved is maybe the biggest. One of the things that if we would start executing and recruiting for every single study, the members or the consumers from the market, it would already take a lot of time. So just being able to actually execute this amount of research with the rather small resources that we have has been a big win. And as said, like, raised the hunger for more. So I think that's the very nice outcome from the cultural point of view as well. And regarding the speed, as said, like, it usually takes weeks to plan and execute a good quality study. So I would say that, of course, sometimes we really need to plan carefully and it takes a while. But in many cases, when the idea is clear that what do we want to kind of figure out, it's like 10 times faster for us to execute the actual study. And also from the time to market or the speed of development, that if we can kind of cut away time that we have in the process in the traditional way, and shorten it and make it more efficient, meaning that we cut several months to for example, 1 month, that's already, like, again, way more efficient, and we can deliver more with the resources that we have.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of where it gets super kind of strategic as well. So, a lot of customers are understanding that it's not just a research tool, but it then becomes your kind of strategic asset where you can defend your revenues because you're fixing things faster with real insights. And then you can also grab into new opportunities faster and grow faster. So this is kind of where this sort of approach connects to the larger business objectives, which are always, about defending revenues, saving money here and there, or finding new growth. But really appreciate your thoughts there, Harri. Let's do a very short Q&A. We are a little bit over time, but we can squeeze a question or two if we just briefly look at some of the questions that might have not been answered yet. I think there's one interesting question on are you worried about the bias and how you control who you recruit? So who are you essentially speaking to? Are you speaking to promoters or detractors, and how do you balance it with other methods?
Yeah, and I think there was just a fresh question about the same theme. So yes, I would say that, of course, these customers who join this kind of a community show some kind of interest towards the brand. So if we would like to do research around people who have never heard of Stockmann, that would be a different way and different method. But in all cases, when we kind of want to strengthen the customer emotion and serve even better the customers that we have, that kind of works for us, that we have them close to us in this kind of online platform. And we have customers for different age groups. So it's not, for example, only young customers would be members of this kind of community. So I would say that it's also the similar issue that everyone has, that if you do online research, it already kind of limits a little bit, that some who is definitely not tech savvy or digital might not be then reachable for you. But knowing that these customers, they are not always super positive that everything is perfect and they just love us unconditionally. They can be very demanding and critical as well. But that just shows that they also have a lot of interest and expectation towards us. So it's not like we would be preaching to the choir in this sense.
Yeah, and that's really important if you think about the other option, that okay, you want to do a perfect research with a perfect sample that is not contaminated and whatnot, and it takes 8 weeks. Which one do you take? Because if you think about it from the business context, it's that speed, go to market kind of motion, and there's always something else that you need to balance, not just the picking up the best research methodology, but you need to balance the time and cost. And I think this is where the customer lab type approach comes nicely into view. There's one more pre-question that we had as a send question to everyone, what they'd like to hear, what questions to address. One question was about the quality and the depth of data that you get. So, how do you feel like what quality and depth of data you're getting from customer lab, let's say, versus online panels or other methods?
Well, for the quality, it's easy to say that it's clearly higher than with the general online panels, where you kind of have to use certain quality control questions even in the study. So we have kind of certain reliability that these are real people and they have real intention to answer the survey. So the quality is bigger, and I would say that we use it as a rhythm that we do get the depth is good, so we can go quite deep as well, and with the qualitative methods that we use, also quantitative, of course. But I would say that sometimes, of course, we have 1,300 customers, that if we would decide that we want to have several thousand responses, then we do something first in the community and then maybe something outside, which is more quantitative then.
And
So it's
more
like a
like
combo.
validation. Yeah,
Exactly, to
validation.
validate the insights
Yeah.
and the findings that we have gotten from the community. But I would say that the quality issue is it's non-existent in certain ways, because customers who are not interested, they maybe resign or something, but that happens very rarely.
Yeah, and it's something that I get very constantly feedback from our other customer lab users, that they really appreciate the quality and the depth of responses that they receive. But that's all we have time for. If there are some unanswered questions, Harri and I will get back to you later, so we share the questions with everyone, or the answers, questions and answers. Um, if you're interested in this sort of approach, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to do a free advisory call to kind of map out your current stage. What are your kind of main challenges with customer research? And we can then do that kind of impact estimation. What would change if you had a customer lab, and then make kind of like an initial draft of the plan of action, how you could champion this sort of approach internally. But again, thanks, Harri, for your generous thoughts and feedback, and sharing the insights and putting all the time in prepping the presentation with me. I think your case is really inspiring for a lot of organizations, for a lot of practitioners, because you've been clearly been able to demonstrate how you're moving, from passive listening to active collaboration and this continuous learning motion with your customers. So thank you, Harri.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for joining today. If you want to share the session internally, the recording will be shared later on, so that's available. And then Harri and I will also make the slides available, so just ping me if you like to get access to the slides. And if you just generally like to have a chat with me and Harri, then just DM Harri via LinkedIn or send me an email, and we can catch up from there. But now it's time to say thank you and have a great day. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.